Great. So we are officially broadcasting and we're live.
Hello.
I'm gonna start welcoming our guests. Looks like folks are starting to log in. Welcome everybody. We'll give another minute or so to allow for folks to join us. But thank you for those of you who are already logging in. And we'll get started in just a few moments. What we started doing with the last webinar, which the first one we had last month, was to encourage folks who have social media to use your social media if you like. And we're hashtagging with OWHE webinar. So you're welcome to do that. And we would love for you to share about the webinar and your thoughts. And soon we're going to get started with our webinar for August that is titled How to Survive and Thrive in the Higher Education Field, which we all are in. Hopefully we all love. And we'll get some more tips on how to thrive in our field, which is always helpful because we, of course, always want to improve ourselves.
Okay.
Great. I see we have about 20 attendees already logged in. Welcome, everybody. For those of you who are here so far, just to let you know how this will work, is that everybody's muted, so you will not be able to ask questions via your voice, but you should be able to see the chat link, and please share your questions via the chat. Then our speaker will go on to do the presentation, and as you submit your questions, I will ask those for you as the moderator. So feel free as questions come up to post them, and I will be happy to be your voice in this case.
Thank you.
Great, and I think we'll give it here one more moment and then we'll get started in the interest of time. And as other people join us, we'll welcome them along and have a great presentation. So it looks like we have a question already. If anyone is seeing our Watch This Video on YouTube link, if you click the link, you'll see and hear the speakers in a new window. So thank you, Shannon, for sharing that information with us for anybody who might be logging in. If you're having some difficulties seeing the presentation, it looks like on your side, you should see a link that says watch this video on YouTube. And it should take you to the presentation so you can see us. Great, so I think we should go ahead and get started. And we'll begin the presentation. It is my great pleasure to present Pilar Montejo with Portland State, and she'll be doing our presentation today again on how to survive and thrive in the higher education field.
Thank you, Dorilis. Thank you so much. So my name is Pilar Montejo. I am International Student Advisor at Portland State University, and it's my pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. So I will share my presentation now, and then we will get started. Okay. So first, thank you everyone for being here. The objective of this webinar is to see some techniques or tools that I have used and based on research and personal experience for surviving and thriving in higher education using resiliency skills. And what am I presenting about this? I started learning about resiliency about a year ago, not so long. And basically because I discovered that my resiliency skills were not that good, and I was struggling managing challenges with the work and stressors. I am not a psychologist. I am not expert in resiliency. However, I have done my own research, and I have read a number of books that I'm sharing with you today, and I have put in practice a lot of those techniques that have changed my life substantially. And for today, we are going to start with the objectives. So we are going to see that what are the most common challenges, and probably we are going to have common things in common. And we're going to talk about pessimism, optimism, perfectionism, and optimalism. We are going to see some strategies for stress management, balanced life, and resiliency, some skills to bounce back, and the cultural resilience at the end, of resilience at the end. So we'll start with what is resilience. It's basically, and as we saw, and we see in this picture, a beautiful flower coming out of very difficult place. And it's that capacity to recover quickly from difficulties. It's to be tough, it's to be able to bounce back. And I didn't know this concept very well, even though I am from a country that is very resilient. Colombia is actually the most resilient country in the world, and actually has been categorized as the happiest country in the world for the second time in a row, this year and last year. And researchers were intrigued how people could be so happy under such terrible conditions. And as an example, I could say that, for example, when I called my mom, totally nervous because I heard about a bomb exploding in Colombia and close to where my mom lives, actually. And I called her totally in panic. What happened? What happened? She said, oh, yes, I heard about the bomb. Yeah, it was kind of hard. It was loud. But I'm okay. Everyone in the family is okay. So it was kind of that thankfulness and gratefulness coming from a very dark and sad place. And I realized that I did not have those resiliency skills, even though I'm coming from a culture that has been resilient. And that takes me to our workplace, how I am coping with my stressors in my workplace. And here is where I want to invite our participants. And Dorelis, I would appreciate if you share with me. I'm going to ask the participants to write what are those common challenges that we face as women in higher education. Please type those things that you consider common or probably are just stressors for you, or you consider a challenge. So let's give a few seconds or up to a minute for participants to share some of those challenges. And please, Darylis, feel free to share those when you are ready.
Yes, and as a reminder, you're able to chat, and if you submit your chat, I'll be able to read off your comments and share what your thoughts are. So we have one, time management, having your voice listened to and ideas heard. Very good points, I agree with those. Those are a couple that have come in so far, 3 that have come in. Anybody else?
Okay.
All right, we'll go with those. Oh, one more.
Okay.
Students expressing a very fast response rate from inquiries and prioritizing. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, I have some of those, but also, workload in higher education is always an issue for certain positions. Talking about balance, life, and work, how we put family, kids, and work in perspectives. Talk about flexible schedule. What else? Turnover in higher education, promotions. Yeah, that is very related to that voice listens, right? Procrastination, that has to do with time management due to the workload. Compensation, salaries, rewards, time off, and the list could go on and on. I know at this moment we are a little shy and we may not even be aware of those challenges, but there are many challenges in higher education, and for some people, our challenges, for other people are not even stressors, right? But those are the ones that you see here. Is how my head was a couple of years ago, how I was dealing with those stressors. And that took me to a place to start thinking, why am I so stressed? And then I started reading about, am I a pessimist or am I an optimist? And we all know what the pessimist thinks, that this glass is half empty, and the optimist thinks the glass is half full. And I realized that I was a perfectionist. The perfectionist is, I am not optimist, I am not pessimist, I am perfectionist. The glass is not full, that's all that matters. That's how I was thinking, right? And so when I was dealing with issues at work, it was not just that, oh, we are not doing this procedure well, or oh, we are doing the best that we can. It's like, oh, it's not perfect. And that was kind of my practice. And I realized that perfectionism is actually not a quality. And that led me to keep researching and thinking, why is this? Why is this so bad? And I discovered this concept of optimalism, which was one of the first books that I read, The Pursuit of Perfect by Tal Ben-Sahar. And he brings it this way: the perfectionist and the optimalist. And yes, I was in this side of the spectrum. I thought that journey is a straight line. I was thinking I had an amazing fear of failure. And then I realized that actually the journey is not a straight line, it's a regular spiral. And failure is feedback. Failure is an opportunity for me to learn. It's an opportunity for me to be grateful that I'm discovering things that I probably didn't know. And before, just fear was dragging my thoughts and my life. As a perfectionist, I was focused on destination, not so focused on the journey. And I'll talk about this ahead, about living the present, living the now. As a perfectionist, it was all or nothing instead of nuance and complex thinking. I was defensive instead of open to suggestions. Fault finder, right? And I will talk about that ahead as well, instead of benefit finder. I was harsh and instead of forgiving. And I found myself sometimes being so harsh that I was snapping at people. And I was finding fault in others why I was this way. And then I started working more in being forgiving and trying to find a benefit, a learning from that situation. And yeah, I found myself doing this. Instead of being rigid and static, I started to be more adaptable and dynamic. But don't take me wrong, I'm still a little of this. I am not totally cured. I am still working on that. And I continue my journey in discovering who I was and who I wanted to be. And I discovered Brené Brown, and probably some of you already know her. She has several books, and these two were the ones more related to what we are talking today. But she talks about shame, she talks about resiliency, she talks about vulnerability, and these two books were very impactful for me. From The Gift of Imperfections, I want to share something with you. So it's the 10 guideposts for wholehearted living by Brené Brown. And what she says is like, let's cultivate authenticity. Let go of what people think. Just be yourself. Cultivate self-compassion. Let go of that perfectionism. And Brené Brown has a beautiful mantra that I try to remember. She says, at the end of the day, at the end of the month, at the end of my life, I want to know that I contributed more than I criticized. And sometimes at the end of that day, I was saying, oh my God, I just spent a lot of time criticizing and being perfectionist instead of being grateful and contribute and see the learning opportunities. She says, cultivate resilient spirit. Let go of numbing and powerlessness. Gratitude and joy. Let go of scarcity and fear of the dark. And there were days that I was getting home and I was struggling finding something to be grateful. And then I discovered that there are techniques and methods for me to change that. And I will share with that. I will share with you that in this moment. She talks about cultivating intuition and trusting faith, letting go the need for certainty. And she says, faith is a place of misery, where we find the courage to believe in what we cannot see and the strength of let go our fears of uncertainty. It's just to take that leap of faith and let go. Creativity, letting go of comparison. Be unique, be different. Cultivate play and rest, letting go of exhaustion as a status symbol and productivity as self-worth. Calm and stillness, letting go of anxiety as a lifestyle. Corjon said, I am not what I am not what is happened to me. I am what I choose to become. So when I read this, I started thinking, what do I want for my life? Do I want to be in stress or in calm? So I am the one who decides, who chooses. I am the one who has the options, nobody else. I take responsibility of who I want to be. Cultivating meaningful work, letting go of self-doubt and supposed to. Cultivating laughter, song, and dance, letting go of being cool and always in control. And while I was learning to do all these things, big magic happened. And at PSU, there was something called Project Happiness. And this project, it was inviting all the community, students, faculty, and it talks about all these skills: self-acceptance, gratitude, kindness, compassion, altruism, simplicity, authenticity, self-expression, creativity. There you go again. Social connection, mindfulness, present moment awareness, and forgiveness. And you can find more about these techniques in this website. You will receive the handouts after this presentation. And if you are curious, go to this site and learn more about how to practice these skills, how to make them part of your life. And the interesting thing about this Project Happiness is that many members of our office attended to that, and we started practicing some of them. So like the gratitude, like self-expression in different ways, social connection. So there were team members in our office that started going to the gym together, practicing a little of that mindfulness with friends in the office. And that was very rich for our office. And I continue my research and my journeys. And then something that I implemented very strongly was the practice of gratitude. So I learned from Dr. Frank Lawless, and you will see the book at the end of the presentation. He talks about retrain the brain, and he recommended to have a gratitude journal. And he was saying, at the end of the day, write 3 positive things that happen to your day. The 3 things that you are grateful for. And a couple years ago or so, that I was in a very dark place, I was not able to find anything. I was getting and sitting in front of that notebook and said, what? My day sucked. It was really bad, right? And I realized that through that book that actually I can change that. So I started, this book taught me how to switch that, how to switch that terrible thing. Let me share something that happened to me recently. So recently, I was in a trip going abroad, and I got really sick. Well, I was visiting my family, actually. And I got really sick. And I was going to be there for a few days, and I was sick probably for 1/3 of the trip. And I could have been saying and playing the victim role, saying, oh, that totally sucked. Like, how is it possible that this happened to me, that I get sick at this moment when I need this time, and go on and on and on. But practicing this technique of switching that negative thing to a positive thing, I changed that to say, okay, I'm grateful this happened at this moment when I am at home with my mom. She's taking care of me, and she haven't had that opportunity probably in 20 years. So it's good to be the baby girl again. So even though I'm feeling physically weak, I found that gratitude, and I also saw how my family take care of me, and they were worried about me, and seeing that love, it was so meaningful, and actually it made me feel better. I was not feeling that miserable anymore. Elizabeth Gilbert, so probably some of you know her. She wrote the Eat, Pray, Love, and recently her book Big Magic. She recommends a jar of gratitude jar, or gratitude, or a happiness jar. And this is a nice practice. Is just to get a little paper. It can be a scratch paper, and write something positive or nice that happened to you that day. And you can implement this in your family, let's say, with your kids, that everyone writes something that happens that day, something nice, one thing, and put it in a scratch paper and deposit in the happiness jar. And one of those days that are not so good, and the kid comes back from school, or we come back from work with totally overload, and we are actually arriving late at home, and probably our husband is upset because I didn't manage my time well. So I go to that happiness jar and remind myself all the other positive things that I have in my life. Another technique is called the GLAD technique. Actually, I learned it from one of my dear friends, and is the GLAD goes for G for gratitude. Instead of writing 3 positive things, I could use it this way, like I'd write something that I am grateful for, that I'm grateful that day, no matter how small it is. Something that I learned, probably a new skill, or something that I discovered about myself, even how I react in front of certain situation, something that I accomplished. And it could be a small thing, like, okay, let's say I drank my 2 liters of water today, or I actually got all my job done, everything that I had planned today. Or, okay, I didn't get everything done, but I was able to help these students, or to get things that I was not intending to do. And we delight, one thing that touched our heart on today. And for example, this gratitude practice, so in our office, International Student Scholar Services, our supervisor, my dear friend Christina Luther, she presented with me in the conference this year, and since then, she has implemented a gratitude moment in our staff meetings. So we take 3 to 5 minutes of our agenda at the beginning of the meeting, and everyone, or whomever wants to volunteer, shares something that they are grateful for, or something that they are happy about. And it can go from simple things to more complex things that we have achieved at work. So at this moment, I want to invite, and don't be shy this time, I want to invite people about how to write something challenging or negative that happened to you the last week. Let's put like that frame, like last week, something that happened to you last week. So Arilis, I would like to, so if you could read, let's see if this time they are not that shy, and share with something negative. We don't need to read names, just the event.
All right, I'm ready to read them off as you guys type them in. So use your chat box and just type in your thoughts, and I will read them off. Something, and you said last week, Pilar? Something negative.
Last week or last month. Something that it was really negative, or something that it was challenging or not so good, something that is still kind of in the back of your head, like bothering you.
So we have one here. I had to have a talk with a co-worker about the level of her work. It was hard. We've worked together for a long time. So that was a challenge. Another one, had to leave work to let the plumber in for work and ended up missing half a day, and really needed to be at work that day. Yeah, because life happens. Doesn't care that we're busy.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Anyone else?
Any other takers? Yeah, I have to deal with some staff issues myself this week, and that has been taxing and challenging. The not so fun conversations, so I can definitely relate to those.
Okay. So if you feel comfortable sharing something positive about the same experience, I'm going to invite you and our audience to share something positive about the same experience. And you can use the GLAD technique or something that you got out of that situation.
Okay, a couple more that came in while folks are typing what they were glad about. Working in a very crowded condition with no space or solution in sight, and have had trouble making time to do work that needs to be accomplished.
Okay.
Another one, I had to do a diversity training with staff and felt that they just weren't getting it. I appreciate that struggle too. So one of the glad things that are coming in is for an early example, we're still friends and didn't cry during the talk. I appreciate that too. I too can get emotional. Another one was in the one that was a crowded space. Because it was crowded, we're succeeding and growing, and a good reason for being crowded. So that's a good outlook.
Yes.
And then another one was taking a much needed vacation after a very stressful time. And a positive is that I have been sending more or spending more me time, but I still feel guilty not getting work done. And another one that just came in, I was able to do work from home while waiting for the plumber and actually was interrupted a lot less as I usually do at work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing. That makes me really happy. And I know sometimes it's very difficult to change that negative feeling and that challenging sensation. But if we make a little effort, or sometimes some extra effort to switch those thinking, and we get out of that dark side, or we get out of those negative thoughts, and we force ourselves to find something good out of this, for sure we will find it. Thank you so much for people who share it with us. I think that sets the example that is possible, even though in very tough situations we can find good things to share, to experience from that. So thank you so much for sharing. So I want to move to some strategies for stress management. And this actually came from a workshop that I took with OWHE in 2014 with Dr. Andrea Wooddale, the Central Oregon Community College. And while I attended this workshop with her, I'm talking in 2014, she asked us to do a test that you can find in this website, Life Stressors Test Score. And at that time, she asked us to say, okay, you are gonna check your last month, and you're gonna give you're gonna say how many times you felt those stressors. And that's like one of the things that helped me notice that I was in stress. Is this test really helped to track my stressors, to identify what are causing discomfort. So when I did that test in 2014, my score was 745, which was the highest in the classroom. People were laughing, and I was quite embarrassed because the average highest is 300. So I was way too stressed, which means that the chances that I get sick or there is a high risk for me to become ill in the near future with that number. And then I follow some of the strategies that she suggests. I started exercising, eating healthy, having lunch, right? Because sometimes we skip lunch in higher education. It's easy to eat in front of the computer. So if you are not eating lunch in front of the computer, I congratulate you for that. And if you are doing it, please consider to take a break. Get out of your office and have a lunch somewhere else. do office yoga, breathing, take a walk when things are stuck, right? Or the office is too crowded, or I need to get things done and things are not happening. Sometimes just a walk can get us out of that dark place. And that's something that we have been doing in our office, not only me, but other coworkers have been implementing that. Stick to the schedule, and that is a little of time management and takes practice and a lot of skills to build in that sense. Put yourself in another's shoes, right? To practice empathy. And somebody in that class said, watching cute kitten videos, that brings always a smile. Take breaks and speak up. So this year, when I took the test again, oh, guess what? I'm still stressed. I got 124 points, quite different than the 745, which means that I have only a low to moderate chance to become ill in the near future. So I guess taking care of myself paid forward. Then I continue my search and I was with a life coach. Her name is Michelle Atlas she's in New York State. And while I was working with her, she asked me to do this wheel of life. And I'm gonna, even though you don't have the handout in front of you, you can see it in the screen. There are 10 parts of our lives. And she asked me, and I'm gonna ask you now, to rate the level of satisfaction in each one of them. So you are gonna, in a paper, you are gonna write, and not gonna ask you to write anything in here unless you want to share. But rate from 1 to 10, where 1 is very dissatisfied and 10 is completely satisfied. Like right now, this moment of your life, like today, how do you think your finances are? Your career is, your health, your spirituality, your community, your physical environment, your fun and recreation, your friends, your family, and your relationship with a spouse, partner, or significant other. So take just a few seconds, to rate that, to identify how your life looks like today, how balanced it is, right? And I'm gonna ask you if you now think, if you have to choose just one aspect of your life that you would like to move to a higher level, to a level 10, to that ideal situation that you envisioned when you were rating it. You want to choose one. And you say, okay, I think I probably cannot change my physical environment right now because it is what it is. We are in a crowded office. I probably do not have control in this, but I have control in other areas. What would be that one that I want to choose? So choose one, and once you choose one, you are gonna write to yourself, and if you wanna share, I would appreciate that too. One action that you would like to take to get you to that higher level. One action in either one that you chose. So I'm gonna open the discussion. If you wanna share what aspects of your life, and oh, let me share what I did, right? So my graphic was very kind of in here in the center, right? And I chose that I was gonna increase my spirituality, which was really low at the time. I chose spirituality, and I wanted to bring it to a higher level. So I started practicing some spirituality habits. And amazingly enough, other aspects of my life is starting to move to a higher level. Other people, for example, choose fun and recreation, right? Exercise. And once they make a decision and make an action going higher, like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gym, or I'm gonna do a hike, or some people say, I'm gonna spend more time with my family. I'm gonna look for that balanced time with work, family, life, and they start changing. When one action takes place, amazingly, the other parts the other elements of our life start aligning to a better place. So I'm going to invite people to write something that they are willing to make a change. And if they want to share with us what action you would take to take that area of your life to a higher level, we would really appreciate that. So one action in that area of your life.
All right, it looks like we have one already.
Okay.
One, it's friends. It says, I want to start volunteering with some organizations to start meeting others with similar interests and passions, since I don't know many people in the Pacific Northwest other than my partner and those I work with.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Anyone else? That's a beautiful one. And when those things start happening, big magic happens. Other things start aligning. Anyone else? Okay, then probably this is a little more personal, and I understand we want to keep it for ourselves for later. So I'm going to move on.
I have one more before we went. So career improvement by going back to school for my master's degree. Congratulations, that's great.
Congratulations, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyone else?
No? Nobody else. If anybody else pops in, I'll let you know.
Okay, I will move to a subject. So while I was in this coaching and life coaching transformational things, I got to something that we all know. We all know about this Maslow hierarchy of needs. And we also know about these physiological safety and love belonging needs that we all always pursued, right? And I was reading a book from Wayne Dyer. I can see clearly now. And I could have spent another hour talking about what I have learned from his books about the self-actualization and how I was so far from getting there. And I am still far from getting there, but at least I am having more balance in all of that by just increasing one aspect, which was spirituality in my case. And probably for other people could be better eating habits or different situations, right? So I just want to bring it up because it's so difficult to get self-actualized, to get to that point. But I think it's possible. And I know a few people that are like that. And probably you don't know anyone self-actualized, but there are people self-actualized. So let's be observant about who have those skills for problem solving, lack of prejudice, or acceptance of facts. Which leads me to how we are gonna build those skills to bounce back. And I'm gonna present some cases from my work. Let's say, so I'm gonna read the skills first. So avoid being a victim. Recognize feelings. Do not deny emotions, right? It wouldn't be logical to say everything is fine, nothing is happening, everything is good. No, we need to recognize how we are feeling. Be present, live the now. And in here, I want to mention Eckhart Tolle, who wrote The Power of Now. And that book was very powerful for me because every time that my brain goes to the future or the past, and I am stopping living the present, is when I lose perspective and lose reality. Identify factual options and empower your life. So for example, I remember when being the victim is something that is normal actually in my culture. My mom behaves that way. I learned it from my family. It's natural. But let's see, I was managing a case. Oh,
I'm not sure what happened. It looks like we lost our presenter. I hope she's okay. We'll try to see if we can get her back with us and continue the presentation. I feel like it was getting good there, and I apologize for that. Let's give her another minute here, see if she's able to join us again.
Okay.
Okay, hi.
I'm sorry that we got
Disconnected? I'm
No
glad that I had a backup plan.
problem.
Did you hear me
Okay,
well?
I'll let you take it away again.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy I had my backup plan ready. And that is where I think serendipity is wonderful. I will share that with you in a second. So I was talking about this student that it was quite a tough case. It was a tough case. It took me probably a year to be working with this student. And then she sends an email to me explaining her situation. And then when I read that email, I feel like somehow she's gonna be violating her immigration status. And then my first reaction is, why is she doing this to me? Right? And this, so I'm playing that role of victim, right? I'm taking it personal. It's like she's not listening to me. She's not following the advice that I gave her, right? And just wonder if we have done that with the students sometimes, or even we do it with coworkers or family members. And then just stop for a second. Okay, what is the situation here? And then I read her email carefully again, and then I focus on the facts. And then I realized that, oh, sorry, I realized that actually she's not violating her immigration status, and she's actually not rude, and she's not doing anything to me, just by analyzing the facts and starting avoiding being a victim. And that's one of the examples that we can go on in many other ideas. Being present. So being present, how we practice that. For example, when we discover that we are sick, or we may be sick, we go to the doctor to do the physical checkups and to track our things. And the doctor says, oh, I probably need a second examination. So then what happens with our brain usually goes to the future to say terrible things. Maybe I'm going to have this, or maybe the doctor found something else. And or my family, or I go to the past. Oh, my family had this, my family had that, this cousin had this. And we are not really focused on the present, which is, I just need to make an appointment for that exam. At this moment, I don't have anything else definitive. So I have been starting practicing more this being present, avoiding to be the victim, and identifying when I do it. That, oh, am I being the victim here? I mean, how do I change that internal dialogue, right? Okay, and even though I did not present this in the next slide, I did not present it in our workshop in January. I want to share it now. I learned just a month ago something about personal leadership. And this is a fellowship that I did in Summer Institute for Intercultural Communication. And I learned these techniques, which are not so different than what I have learned before. And that is, how do we manage a critical moment by having a dialogue with myself? And it has 6 practices that is very similar to what I have said before. It talks about attending to judgment. So to stop myself for a second and analyze if the student is actually doing something to me. No. Is my coworker doing something to me? Or I'm saying, oh, this person is blah, blah. So am I putting judgment in that? Or probably, yeah, I'm facing difficult situations, and then or it's a very stressful conversation with a coworker, and I'm feeling frustrated, and I feel sad, and probably angry. And then I start attending my physical sensation, that I'm probably sweaty. And observing these things show me the presence. One of the practices, as we said, is cultivating stillness. Just to take a second, breathe, and engage in the present. And how do we engage ambiguity? We don't know. What is more there that we haven't explored? What are the things that are unknown? And something that really struck me was how I manage all of that, all those stressors, with my vision, who I am, my purpose in life. That was really something for me that I just wanted to add to this presentation, because it's something new. But last year, also in Summer Institute, I attended this workshop about culture of resilience, and we took this quiz that you see here in the resilienceyquiz.com. The author of this book is Al Sieber. He died, but his wife, his wife and his niece are still are moving this concept around, and they have these books and a whole methodology about the culture of resilience. And this book, The Survivor Personality, is more about as an individual, and the Resilience Advantage is more about organizations. And they present these 6 components that in organizations, what we can do to improve the resiliency in our workforce or in our workplace. And they recommend choose resilient people when you are hiring. Ask questions about in the interview about behavior, about attitudes, and in facing difficult situations. How would they respond? Ask them, what would you do in this situation, and then see how they react. That can give you a little idea about how resilient they are. We are talking about leadership, right? Try to understand their approach, trying to understand what they are looking or expecting from us. It's important, and here is we as professionals in higher education, so it's important that we practice resiliency by motivating our coworkers and our students. For those who are doing advising, it is, we have to be very factual, go to the problem, resolve it. But if we have the opportunity to talk about resiliency with our students, it would create a better environment. And I'm going to send you a handout. I already passed it about this, how to do things for making this better. Engagement. So is how do we engage our employees? How do we engage our students? How do we engage our family, right? And consider developmental capacity. It's about going from life sucks to life is great. How do we get from one part to the other? And there is a book called Tribal Leadership that also guide us to that. And finally, they promote the 5 levels of resiliency, which are the following one. Is the well-being, right? So it's taking care of ourselves in all the aspects that I have mentioned before: physical, emotional, mental, organizational. Start talking about problem solving, solution focus, right? Instead of just being distressed about the situation and the stressors. Then develop that self-esteem, strong inner self, self-concept, self-esteem, self-confidence. How do we work on those? How do we develop those? And we have talked about those before. And they talk about counterbalance. So how do we create balance and complexity in our lives by bringing the solutions and supporting each other. And finally, serendipity, letting go and just wait for better things to happen. And since I started doing this and I started practicing more and developing my own resiliency skills, big magic happens. It is amazing how just good things happen to me. And I am not going to bore you with all those details, but it's something good when we start developing those resiliency skills. So with this, I'm finalizing, but I want to share with you the resources. All these have been different books that have provided different information. Some of them come from the psychology field, others come from social work, other comes from communication skills, self-improvement, other comes from spirituality. And these are some of the books that I have read that have really helped me build this new pattern in my life. And I just want to invite all the participants who are interested in this topic that it's possible to change your life. It's in your hands, it's your decision, and it's your options. So I really thank you for being here, for listening to my story and taking probably some notes. And at this moment, I would like to invite people to share questions or something that they want to comment. Like, okay, so after this webinar, you have decided to do a change in your life. So please share with us what would you like to do or your thoughts, opinions. So I invite the public to share. Hello? Hello? Oh, yeah.
Hello. Sorry, I had muted myself.
I was
So we want to invite folks to turn back to the chat, and if you have any questions and or comments, please share those now with us. I'm feeling right now like my list is so long, I'm a little overwhelmed.
So we are grateful. We are grateful that we have a long list.
Yes. So I feel like I gotta organize. Like, what would be my next step to really tackle and make some changes and improvements in my life?
And it doesn't
Definitely a lot to think about.
Yeah, and I want to share it's not an overnight thing. It has been a long journey of probably a year and a half that I have been working on that. So it's not something that is overnight. I still struggle with the stress sometimes, but I have developed the skill of calm myself on that. Like, oh, why I'm not managing this stress? So it's not something easy. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of determination and consistency, and just keep trying and not giving up. It's very easy to give up. So yeah, don't be overwhelmed for the long list.
And we had one person who shared that they started a daily gratitude practice a few years ago, and it really pulled them through a tough time.
Okay.
I feel like I should try that.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like I've been a little extra negative lately, so I think I need to really look at the gratitude practice, because it seems to be working for people. So I should look at that.
It does work. It does work, and it takes 5 minutes. And actually, getting the thoughts down to a paper helps to sleep, because I was struggling with the sleeping as well. There were 3 months last year that I was not able to sleep at all, and then when I implemented the gratitude journal, it helps to the brain to slow down and to put a positive tone in that mindset. So it really helps, and it takes 5 minutes. And at the beginning, I was writing only 3 things. Now I complete pages.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great. Well, it looks like we haven't gotten any other comments or questions.
Okay.
So I think if there are no others, I'll share that I will be sending an email after we're done today and share the slides and information that Pilar shared with me, so that way all of you will have copies. And those who registered but couldn't attend to them today, they'll get that as well as a link to the replay for this presentation. So if you want to watch it again, if you want to review it and maybe think through some more what was talked about today, that'll be available to everybody. And I just then want to give a sincere welcome to Pilar. Thank you so much. This was such a great presentation.
Thank you.
Certainly, I feel like I've benefited quite a bit from it, and I feel like I have some things to think about and plan for here moving forward. And really appreciate your time today.
It's my honor, and thank you for the opportunity.
Great. And thank you for all of you who joined us today. Again, feel free to hashtag OWHE webinar. Share your thoughts out in social media. And other than that, I'll send a follow-up email. And I will also include an evaluation form. If you can fill those out for Pilar and myself, we'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.